Okay, welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, the 8th of July, and I know a lot of people are on vacation and enjoying this wonderful weather. And I brought Tracy Johnson back here for week two of what do buyers expect and what do they need. And so I'm excited to have Tracy here again today as a guest. And so I just wanted to recap quickly few of the things we talked about last week, which were, agency, start the conversation early, um, explaining how you get paid, be very, very transparent, locking in the commitment to make sure that you don't hear that they clicked on a Zillow agent or they bought from an open house or any of those other crazy things that can take place. Be the guide, stay out front, in front, always be ahead of them. Remember, if they're asking you questions, you lose because I think you should have covered those items. And there shouldn't be too many questions if you're really doing a thorough job. And then protect and advocate. And then the big takeaway is give them what they need, give them more than they expect. And that's how you will build a referral network. And really, that is, to me, the whole focus, what we're talking about here last week and this week is we want to do a wonderful job. We want everybody to get what they want. We want the buyer to have a clean transaction. But we want it to be more than that. We want them to walk away and immediately call their friends or family or whatever and say, I just had the most incredible experience. This agent was so far out on top of everything. They prepared us for things that were going to happen before they happened. They informed us. They handled everything so smoothly. There were no surprises. Um, and that's the experience that you will need to give if you are going to expect referrals. And again, why would anybody work this hard for that one deal? To me, I picture the tree with the root and the leaf systems going out. And to me, it's always been about building a business, and building a business is referrals. So with that being said, Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So I wanted to kind of pick up where we left off last week. And, so what's next? And so as I think about the things we talked about, I wanted to dive into a couple specific areas. One of them being setting up the showings, how you do that. Next is once you've done the showings and you've landed on one of the houses that you're going to make an offer on, how do you go about that? And then after the acceptance, that's when you do your accepted offer package.
Mhm.
And so let's start with just in regards to the showing, are there things that you just must never do, and there's things that you must always do?
Well, I like the client to be the one who directs the path in terms of what we go to see. Sometimes you're going to be working with buyers who are not from the area. They've just come in for the weekend. They don't know the area. So in those circumstances, you may be leaning in a little bit more, but I usually let the clients be the driver of what we go to see. Now, I might see something and say, "What about this one?" And I want them to know also I'm looking. I'm not just relying on them, what they see on Zillow. I actually have the search set up. And when I set up my search, I actually have a copy of it go to myself. And I know not everybody likes to do that. We all get a lot of emails already. Your email box gets very cluttered, so I get it. But it's also a way for me to say, "Hey, did you just see the house that popped in at 123 Main Street?" Right? They know that I'm working for them right now. It's Wednesday. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and when I reach out to them, I need them to know that I'm working today for you right now. So the list gets developed of whatever houses you're going to go see. Maybe it's a tour. Maybe you're doing 3 to 5 houses, but five is kind of like that's a lot to go see in a day. It's a lot for a buyer to take in. But, should you be calling the listing agent in advance before you go show the house, before you set up your tour? Well, it's not really a bad idea to do that. You know how many times that you show up at the house and you've showed it, and then you call the agent after to say, "My clients really like the house," and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to move it to pending. I didn't realize that, you got an auto accepted, confirmed showing and the house is already sold." So now you look bad in the eyes of your client, like, why didn't you know this? Could you have known this? And so it's a good idea to establish the relationship with the listing agent early. Like, hey, it's me, right? I'm going to bring a
Yeah.
buyer out to show your house. I work at Five Star. Find out something. Have good communication with them because really the relationship with the listing agent starts when you make the phone call to show the house.
And that's important. So let me back you up a little bit, and I want to talk about consultation with a buyer to establish what they're looking for so that you don't miss the mark. I
Hmm.
heard so many people say, when they find out I was in real estate, they say, well, my realtor, they were showing me houses way beyond the price I told them. They were showing me ranches when I wanted to see a two-story. They were showing me small parcels when I wanted a big parcel. And so one of the things that I used to do, it was like almost like a little game, but it wasn't like trying to make fun of them or anything. It was just I wanted to really find out what they wanted me to do. So I'd ask them, I'd say, what do you want? Well, we want a ranch style home on a bigger lot, and we want to be on a cul-de-sac, blah, blah, blah. And so I say, well, let me ask you a question. If I found a tri-level or a quad level or a two-story that was in your price range and it would fit everything but, would you want me to show that to you? Would you want me to tell you about it? And so, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I suppose we would. So I've heard agents after they've lost a buyer say, I showed them everything. I did everything they did. And then they went and bought the stinking two-story on a corner,
Hmm.
nothing to do with a cul-de-sac, nothing to do with a ranch. Um, and so to me, you've got to have this banter about, well, let me ask you this. What if I did find this? Would you want me to tell you about it? And
Hmm.
so I used to have this process that I would go through with them of kind of challenging them a little bit just to see if they would bend or if they'd say, no, we want a ranch. No, we want to be on a cul-de-sac. No, we want a wooded backyard.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know what you have in that area, but
Yeah, I'll tell you just a quick story. So I have a team. Jack and Lexi are both on my team. And so they've learned from me. But what I like now is they're developing their own systems that they like that work for them, not necessarily what worked for me. So Jack has developed his own little system. So when he has a buyer consult, he's got his own little form that he fills out. And it's a great form. It's what comes to mind for him. And so this is what he uses and he develops their search based on what they've told him in this form that he does. But further, when he's showing the actual houses, he's got another form that when Jack's showing houses, he always has a clipboard with him. In that clipboard is that piece of paper that says, "What did you like about the house?" He gives them a series of questions that gets them thinking because they're going to leave him and they're going to jump in the car together, or they're going to have some one-on-one time before they walk into the house of another house. So this gives them an opportunity to kind of like break down what just happened at house number two before we go to house number three. I like that.
yeah. I used to do another thing where back in the days when I used to pop them in the car with me, I don't know that that happens as much anymore versus just meeting somebody at a house. But
Yep.
at some point, I was always going to try. So even if I wasn't putting in my car, I'd be trying to find out, okay, out of the three homes, which one comes to be the closest?
Yeah.
I don't know if you do anything like that,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
lately we've only had like, you get that one house and you got to move on it. You don't have 5, 10, 15 homes to see, right?
Yeah, like our
They
top
let
choice
them have
was
a few,
number
yeah.
one. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So now, is there anything that you do while you're walking through the homes? Is there something that you always do with buyers while you're showing them a property or
Hmm.
bringing it through,
Yeah.
or something that you never do?
Yeah. So for me, the things that I do are buyers are looking at the pretty stuff. They're looking at the cabinets and the quartz countertops and the lighting, and they're looking at all the pretty stuff. I am not looking at the pretty stuff. I've already seen that online. But you're trying to show them that I know a little something about the house, right? So we always talk to our buyers about a 4 point system. The four most important things in the house are roof, kitchen, window, and furnaces. And you can live with an old kitchen and you can live with old windows, but you can't live with an old roof and an old furnace. So we spend some time talking about those things. Price, this house versus that house. What kinds of money would need to be spent in a house that has a roof that's 22 years old? Maybe you're with a first time buyer and a roof that's 22 years old. Like I'm not sleeping well at night if I've just sold a first time buyer a house with a 22-year-old roof because they've taken their bucket of money, they've dumped it over, given it all to the bank, and who's going to be putting that 15 to $30,000 roof on the house depending on the price point. So I always talk about those things. While they're looking at the pretty things, that's what I'm looking at.
All right, let's go into writing the offer. So you've been out and now it's like you've asked some type of question that, brings you to yes, we want to. Do you have a specific question you ask?
Not really. Yeah, usually you can tell when you walk into a house with a buyer that you've walked with enough through enough homes. You can tell when you get in that house that you can feel it. It's palpable.
Okay. All right. So writing the offer,
Hmm.
how do you have any special things you think maybe you don't think they're special, but maybe we will see that they're
Hmm.
kind of nice.
Hmm.
But when you're prepping them, okay, I'm going to go through these documents with you, and I want to make sure that when we get done, you don't have any questions, you're not wondering. Um, and so I'm going to try to I'm going to go through this with you. I don't want to leave anything out. I don't
Hmm.
want to bore you to tears, but I also don't want you to ever be in a position where you say, I didn't know.
Yeah,
How
right.
do you go down that road?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is that before you get to write the offer, when they tell you, hey, Greg, I really want you to write the offer, on this property, and we can see that it's priced at 350,000. Our job is to also make sure that just because the agent priced it at 350, that we want to somehow agree with it. We can't make the seller change the purchase price, but we need to be able to say to our buyer as their guide, guys, I'm looking at the comps and this is a 290 house all day long. I have no idea how they arrived at 350, but here's where we're at. And then explain to them the appraisal process and the appraisal guarantee, like all those things have to be explained in detail before you write the offer so that they understand, what's happening. That I believe that the house is overpriced. Hey, my agent thinks it's overpriced, but the seller wants this much money and we want the house. But we have this thing called the appraisal that's going to be the determining factor as to what it sells for. And we may lose it in the end if it doesn't appraise. But make sure they understand that environment of an overpriced house. Then they actually, again, believe that you're working in their behalf because you're checking it out. You're doing your homework, not just when you go to list a house, but also when you work with a buyer. So,
All right. So one of the things that I have always tried to avoid is saying anything that sounds threatening.
mhm,
Like, well, if you don't do this, you're going to lose. Uh,
mhm,
and so, all right. So you're aware that the listing agent has told you that there's at least two other offers.
mhm.
How does that change your conversation with these buyers?
Yeah. Well, it's most of the time it's a learning curve, right? You can tell them and explain to them what this means that you have competition. But at the end of the day, most of them really just feel like they're still in the driver's seat. And it takes a number of losses until they come alongside of you. And suddenly they're listening a little bit better than maybe they had been before. Because I always say, we're gonna like a lot of houses. I want you to like everyone you write on, but I want you to love the one you get to inspect. In other words, you're gonna kiss a lot of frogs. So don't kiss and fall in love with every single one because we're gonna have two offers, three offers, 5, 10, 20 offers. So sometimes you're gonna lose. But each time builds something in the area of your relationship where they begin to listen to you in a new way because listen, nobody hates losing more than me. I hate losing. And buyers don't like to lose either. It keeps them from their peace, their sleep, and you want them to win.
You'd like do a reverse comp thing for a buyer? Do you show them here's some of the comps that have sold around this house over the last 3 months? You ever do
Uh,
that?
Maybe, yeah, when there's a competitive situation, I'm definitely doing that before I write an offer, especially if, a lot of times you know the sub, you know the area. So when you see the number that it's listed at, you're already giving a big eye roll.
So even if they say, hey, look it, we want this house, we're willing to pay 10K over asking,
Mhm.
um, do you still want to show them the comps? Do you want to, or do you just want to go forward and write it up?
No, I'm definitely showing them the comps. I just want them to know, again, because they might not win on this one. My job is to build trust through the process, to be their guide. And so by doing these things, they're now relying on me. I'm their double check system, right? They know I'm watching. So absolutely.
So I've had multiple experiences throughout the years where the other agent um, might say something or that wasn't very nice, or they might have repeated something their seller said that wasn't very nice. Do you repeat that to your buyers? Do you carry messages forth that could cause a ruckus, so to speak?
Well, I don't like to do that. So if it's something negative about the seller, I don't necessarily want my buyer to know the negative things. It causes the water to get a bit of turmoil before we even get started. But anything that the seller's agent tells me that they shouldn't, and I'll be clear, I will say this now. There are so many agents that say things to a buyer agent they should never say. It basically gives me an advantage that I take advantage of. And I absolutely will tell my seller, my buyer right away exactly what they told me. So remember who your fiduciary is too.
So I agree that it's important that you're anything that's relevant in terms of that offer.
Mhm,
But if it's a personality quirk or something that the agent interjects that's totally unnecessary,
mhm.
I have found that I've seen it where the buyer's agent gets their buyer so worked up by sharing too many things that now their buyer's angry at somebody they don't even know.
Yeah,
And it has nothing to do with them getting the deal, but they've entered in personal personality stuff. And I just wanted to get that on the table that be really careful because it can come back to bite you. And I was trying to remember a story and I can't, I had it a second ago and it's gone where somebody shared something. The somehow those two parties got together later on down the road and found out what was said and
mhm,
shared, and they were furious. And well, you might as well say goodbye to those people forever,
mhm.
because they felt like, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I want to move it along here. So the next area is you win, you get accepted. And I think this is where agents, I think, kind of lose sometimes. They um they don't they don't hit it out of the park at this moment with their communication or whatever. So tell me some of the things that you do to make sure that your buyers are in the loop solidly. They know everything going on. You're
Mhm.
advising, you're counseling, you're guiding. How do you do that?
Right. Yeah, right today I'm using technology because we have technology, and it started with that 5 star getting dot loop because we were one of the first brokers to get it in the state of Michigan. And so dot loop is your friend, and you should be using it to your advantage. When I get a buyer or a seller under contract, the first thing that goes out after acceptance is my next steps email and the accepted offer package. I literally have taken AI, it's created this beautiful little cover sheet that says accepted offer package. And it has the buyers and the sellers' names on it, the property address. It looks really sharp. Then I go into Dot Loop and I click all the buttons for all the documents I need to download. It downloads them all into one PDF. I put my accepted offer package um, PDF above it, so it downloads it like a little book, everything together in one nice little cute package. And then I send it to them with a note, basically saying, hey, here is everything that you've signed with me to date. There's never a question about where this is or that is, or I don't remember that, all of that. With that goes my next steps. What are the next steps? Okay, we're under contract. Now what? I feel like the day I took my real estate test, I'd been doing all this running around and studying, and then I woke up the next day going, what next? Well, that's kind of like what it's like when you get a buyer under contract for the first time. What am I supposed to be doing? Have a process. Everything we're talking about is about being a guide. And so for me, it's that accepted offer package and it's my next steps. I got to collect the earnest money deposit. I'm going to be knocking on your door or calling you because I need to get that. We're going to be connecting with a title company. We're going to be setting a home inspection. Would you like to have a well and septic test done? I can make some recommendations. There's a multitude of things depending on the location of the home that, there could be city inspections that have to be done, a sidewalk inspection.
Do you ever think that you can give them too much info? Is it possible to ever give them too much information in this
No,
area?
never. I just don't think it is. I mean, throw it all in. You want to look like the pro. You want them, this is your opportunity to make such a big impression on people that you are their guide. You are getting them through this. They would not think of all these things, nor should they. This is your job. So when I send it to them, it comes as a big splash. And in the same way, I do another thing called welcome to the transaction. I send that to the mortgage company, right? If there's a mortgage company, I put their information there. Both title companies, if they're two, both agents, their agent ID numbers. What's the commission? Are they US citizens? Do you have a 345? I give it all at one time in one thing and with a copy of the contract and all supporting documents, and I send it to the whole world. So when Star Title gets my package, or even the other title company, they have everything. And one of the first questions I ask the other agent is, what title company will you be using? I need to know that for my welcome to the transaction.
Okay. So these are two documents you mentioned now, next steps and welcome to the sale.
Well, welcome to the transaction and the accepted offer package. The welcome to
Okay.
the transaction goes to the other side. The accepted offer package goes to my client with the next steps.
Now, I'm going to ask you when we put out the little what do we call it after we do this talk
Give
today?
up my secret sauce.
Yes, I want you to share that with everybody.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, got
So
it.
I expect to see those two papers that
Yeah.
you're using, and I want to share those with all the agents. I thought these were excellent ideas, and probably some of the people maybe use something already, but maybe this has things that would be beneficial, some extra things. It might cause some agents that are just now getting in the middle of a transaction and could make you look like a hero.
Right. Well,
And
and I'm going to say this too. Like, I'm not the most creative person, okay? But I'm a really good copycat, okay? So I saw this document from an agent in Brighton because I sell in Southeast Michigan, right? And she did something similar to this after I got an accepted offer. And she was on the list side, I was on the buy side. And I thought, this is amazing. So that's what I need you to know is like, I don't have this amazing idea that's all my own, but I took somebody else's idea and I made it my own. And that's what you can do too. If you see what I did and think this is garbage, throw it out. I don't care. But if you see it and say, she's missing three things here, make it your own and do it.
well, we used to have a term in our early days when we were growing the company. We called it R&D.
Yeah,
Some people think, research and development. We think uh, rip off and duplicate.
that's right.
And
I'm a master.
we all, and so I've always said there's not much new under the sun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that have been created out there today, and with all the technology we have today, the agents have so much available to them to help them. Um, I wanted to ask you, so how do you prepare the buyer for the inspections? And I
Mhm.
know when you were in Detroit, I think you went to a lot of the inspections. Am I wrong?
Mhm.
We did
Yeah,
a
we
lot.
attend all of our inspections from beginning to end.
All right. And
And
now I
so,
I did not do that in the Grand Rapids area.
yeah.
I pretty much let them go, but I did give them a few thoughts before
Hmm.
they did the inspections. And I said,
Hmm.
the way I've always looked at these things is that you want to know what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
And you're not expecting a seller to rebuild this home for you because you're buying it at this price because it has
Mhm.
these things that it still needs, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to try to take some of that, everybody wants everything to be brand new and fixed and right up to
Yeah.
date. And so I would try to prepare them in this way by saying, to me, there was just things that need to be taken care of in the future, and then there was the things about safety or health. And I
Yeah.
always tried to get them to focus on safety or health when it came to inspections. Where do you go in that area?
Yeah, so what I'll say to them is, okay, you're gonna get the home inspected. Let me prepare you for what's gonna come. Okay. Inspection reports can be anywhere from 50 to 100 pages, and inspection reports in the 70-page range are pretty normal. And they're gonna be color coded by red, yellow, green, right? Red is like, whoa, there's something big here. But something big is the red just means pay attention. It can be something as small as, hey, you really should have a GFI in the laundry room. That's a $25 fix max, right? But it's still a red. So just know that it's going to be really, these are the things you need to pay attention to. These are things you probably should have on your radar, and these things are all good. Okay. But I always tell them I want them to think about, they just had someone put together a honey-do list for their significant other because they're gonna itemize it by what's important at the top all the way down to what's good. It's going to come as a PDF. I'll encourage them to save it as a PDF on their computer so that down the road when they're trying to remember the condition or the age of something at the time they bought it, they've already got that all put together. But that we should be preparing for something that's going to be overwhelming. A 75-page report goes, oh my God, who would buy a house after they see a 75-page report? I mean, honestly. But telling them to focus on in today's buyer. So we're in a seller's market right now. So in a seller's market, you're lucky to get a seller to make health and safety corrections. But if a buyer is going to ask for anything, those are the things we want them to focus on. You should give examples of what that is. It's tripping hazards, maybe walking up to the front door, broken glass, oh, a leaky faucet. That's not even a health and safety, but whether you did a radon test and you've got radon gas, things like that.
So, so this area is so important because I think that so many agents can lose a deal over a tiny little thing right now.
Hmm.
You have to get back in the car and start the search all over again. And in
Hmm.
the end, those people may regret that they didn't go along and buy this house. And what you want to be is that person that makes sure that you thoroughly walk through this process with them to talk about, well, what if we have to go back out and start over again? And because they can react, pretty negatively to these reports. The
Hmm.
other area, and you can comment on this again too if you want, but the other area that I want to touch on are the things that these are things that I can control, and these are things that I can't control. I can't control the appraiser. I can't control the inspector. I can't control that seller. I can't control that other agent. So my job is to make sure that you understand what I can and can't do here so
Right.
that it's possible we could get blocked by something where the seller just says, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm done here. And they want to walk, and there's no
Mhm.
bringing them back to the table. And I don't want you to ever think that somehow I caused that. I mean, I
Yeah.
never want to be that person that loses something for you. And so I don't know how you look at all that, but I think about the mortgage app and the appraisal. And we've seen it where everything looked like it was ready to close. And then all of a sudden, some little 25-year-old underwriter sitting in a little cube in Arkansas finds something and says, hey, we're killing this deal. And
Yeah.
you've got, I'm trying to think of, um, we've had it where sellers have just woken up and said, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like, how much do you throw into the bowl here up front? And again, I'm that person that I wanted to put it all on a table. I felt that that was my job, and
Hmm.
I didn't ever want them to think that there was some unexpected thing that popped up that they have never heard of before.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'll leave
Yeah.
you to finish that off.
Yeah. One of the other things I was going to say that's really hard when you're a buyer agent. that sometimes there are other influences that aren't in the room, but they are in the room. They're called parents,
Yes.
grandparents, things like that. And many of them haven't bought a house in a long time. So you're trying to educate the people in front of you while the outside noise is telling them something differently. And this is why, through the entire transaction, the guide piece of it is so important that you can't let the wheels fall off in this moment because you've been building trust all along.
Yeah. So what I think, and I'd like to go a step further, what um, I think you can actually say, look at, is there going to be anybody else that's going to need to see this property before you can actually say yes?
Mhm.
I mean, a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, grandpa, whoever. And if somebody else is bringing money to the table, they may feel like they've got to have a role in that. And it's like, if you don't bring them along the journey and you just say, okay, come and see the house we want to buy, it generally is not a good reaction,
Mhm.
generally pretty negative, and it causes a lot of stress on the buyer because now the person they love and trust is now questioning something, and you've just spent the last week or 2 weeks or a month to bring it down to this point, but that person doesn't have any knowledge about what's gone on. And so I would say if there's somebody that's got to make a decision along with you that you need to trust and that you want them there, then let's bring them on the journey.
Absolutely. You have an opportunity to make an impression on them as well. And that's what this is about is is making impressions with people. And now you have this outside voice that gets to walk through this with you as well. So I think that can be positive, and I think that's a great question too.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else that you can think about as we kind of bring this down to this point of, I'm thinking about the communication steps, like, okay, do you call the people 7 days before the closing? Do you call the people the day before the closing? Do you call the people the day of the closing? Do you call them the day after the closing?
Mhm, mhm.
What's your process there?
Yeah, I just think in general, I'm just calling all the time. Usually there's things happening and you should be looking for opportunities to be calling them. That's the thing. Because you want them to know once you get under contract and you finish the inspections, it gets kind of quiet. So, what are the things that you're doing to be connecting with your buyer? Do they understand the process? Do they, do you understand the process as the agent? So this is why being the guide is exactly what we're talking about. You need a process to be following up with your client, to be asking questions, to preparing them, you need a copy of that settlement statement in hand a day or two before closing. 2 days in advance would be really nice that you've reviewed it so that you don't show up at the closing table and say, well, this is wrong. Well, you had an opportunity to review it, did you? Because usually your title company is going to be sending it to you. Was the commission correct? Ooh, sometimes that happens. We can tell you that we get calls that the commission was incorrect, that the broker transaction fee wasn't included. So, make sure that you've got all of these things in line before you get to that closing table.
That's a great point. I can tell you that I have had calls from agents that at the closing or after the closing, we find out that a commission wasn't included.
Mhm.
We find out that the tax proration was wrong. We find out that a bill wasn't paid. Um, we find out a number of things, and you're sitting there, you're going, how can this happen?
Right.
I mean, the last thing that you want to do is work for 2, 3, 5, 6 months, and then have one of these things jump up at the last moment. And now you've got to go back and say, hey, we forgot something. And it's like you could have easily prevented this by reviewing that closing statement, reviewing the title work, looking at we've had situations where everybody knew exactly what the property was, but somehow another piece got added or subtracted, and now we've got a battle on our hands. After a beautiful process, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And now and so it was so simple. If somebody would have just taken a couple minutes to look at that closing statement, to look at the title work, to look at the legal description. And another one that we run across has to do with sewer versus septic. We've had we had people close and find out after the closing that there's a septic and sewer's not hooked up. Well,
Yeah.
what's the easiest way to make sure that if they said there's public sewer, what's the easiest way? How about you produce a copy of the sewer bill?
Yeah.
What could be easier than that? Show
I've
me a
heard you say
copy
this many times.
of the sewer bill. We've had it where somebody has said, "Oh, they're buying some acreage and there's a telephone pole or a power line down the road. Can you get to that? Is there an access? Is there a legal access for you to get across to that pole?" And we've had so many different things because agents have not asked enough questions. They've not done enough research. And so you're getting paid a lot of money. And these people are working with you because they believe that you know what you're doing and you're going to prevent them from having these types of things pop up.
Mhm.
So it's incumbent upon you to go the extra mile at every step of the
Mhm.
way. I mean, I just um, think that laziness, just trusting that somebody has, well, I'm sure that's okay. If you say, I think, you better pull back and do the research.
Yeah.
If you say, I assumed, well, that never flies either. I
Yeah.
think and I assumed will never ever get you a referral as long as you live.
Right. And
So
ultimately, that's exactly what we're talking about through the series, the one we did last week and this week. It's really talking about like, okay, so we just had a big holiday weekend where lots of people gathered. How do you become the person that when it comes up in a conversation that says, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a house." Well, you should call my realtor so and so. How do you become that name? And you become that name through a process that we've been talking about being a guide and just being there for your client from beginning to end. They don't need someone to write a contract. They need a guide. They need a pro.
yeah, never believe that when they sound like they've got it all figured out and they're just like, hey, I want to buy that. Don't just go down that road. Don't accept that. Don't trust them because when it blows, they will never blame themselves.
Yeah, no.
Who will be blamed if it goes awry? And so there's many times when somebody thinks they're a big dog, and this isn't to diminish them. This isn't to make them feel bad. It's just like, you know what? Let me just do a little work here just to make sure. I want to make sure we've covered all our bases.
Yeah.
And so you know what? When you get the title work, don't just set it in the file. Actually go look at Schedule B. Look for the easements. Look for the different things make sure the names match up. Make sure the property looks like it's the same property. Don't just set that title insurance aside. It's a critical thing. And you know what? I think we've gotten into the mode where we just say, oh, that's the title company's, that's their deal. Well, I'll tell you what, title company's going to get paid. And if it goes wrong, you will never, ever get a referral again as long as you live. And so I've always had this thing about trust but verify. And and the more that somebody sounds like a big dog to me, the more that I want to make sure that I've covered my bases.
Mhm.
And it would be very easy just to let them control the show, but it's not their show. It's your deal to make sure that you give them an expert process, an expert closing, an expert everything. So, last words.
Don't argue. Don't argue with the other agent. We get
Yes,
this a lot, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. So just in parting, be a guide, be kind, don't argue with the other agent. You don't need to be right. You need to get your client a house, and you need to be their guide and their pro from beginning to end.
very nice. Excellent. Tracy, thank you so much again for taking the time. And I'm going to make sure that you get those two documents over to Emma
I
so she
will.
can get those in there and send out a recap of this talk today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks. See ya.
Bye bye.